describe to me, you're in Russia and you're in, I think, Siberia.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's where you are. And it's the Great White. It's cold. It's always, probably always snowing, at least in the winter, right?
In the winter, yeah.
And what months were you there for?
I spent a few years there.
So you spent many seasons, right? And so there's just a lot of that. And these people, they're nomadic, you say. So they travel, and they travel how? With sleds and...
Yeah, so it was interesting. After I'd like spent time with that fur trapper and he really liked me, he was half Russian and half native. He drove me out on a snowmobile to a teepee, you know.
What's a teepee?
A teepee is like, you've probably seen it if you've seen any old Western movies.
Sure.
It's what the natives used to live in. Just
Oh,
that little triangle house.
Okay. It's called a teepee, okay. It's a tent. For
tent.
people who have trouble translating, it's a tent. For people that are just listening, it's a conical tent, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And it's made of hide skin or something.
Hides or whatever, and sticks, you know, lined up like this. Very... You know, how old school,
old school people live there. Yeah,
old way of building a house. And he dropped me off at this teepee and said, "Hey, Andre, this is Jordan. Jordan, this is Andre. You guys will like each other." And just left. And I was like, "Whoa! I didn't know people still lived like this." But basically, they had these reindeer who were. Some of them they had trained to ride, so you could ride them like horses, and some of them would pull sleds. They would milk them and eat them. Although they tried to avoid eating their own reindeer, they mostly lived off of hunting other moose and fishing and stuff. But basically, these reindeer and these native folks lived in a symbiotic relationship, and the reindeer needed the people for protection against wolves and mosquitoes and everything else, and the people needed the reindeer for transport and food. And it was a fascinating culture to be dropped into, and
they spoke Russian?
They spoke Russian. They also have a native language. It was one of those deals where the old people spoke the Evenki native language. The people that are our age mixed, and the young kids only spoke Russian. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So did they get television and whatnot? Where did they learn Russian?
No, they would go back when they went back to the village, which they would do from time to time to get supplies and things. There was TVs in the village, so they'd watch TV. They'd usually get a stack when they go to the village of like newspapers, and then when they were in the woods, they'd flip through them and catch up on the news.
That's crazy, bro. So they had a village where they could live, but they chose to be in the wilderness.
Right, and that's very. Observing that was very interesting because when you first get there, it was all incredible, all amazing. It's so cool. But then as you live there, you realize, oh man, like the alcoholism is really bad, and there's a lot of, like in the village in particular, there's just a lot of like depression and things like murder and suicide, and it's pretty rough.
Is it because of a lack of sunlight, you think?
No. It's got to be deeper than that, because Finland doesn't have the same problems.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It was. I think there's a lot of reasons to explain, and it's also almost inexplicable, but. Where was I going with that? But what was interesting was the people so I went to a couple native villages. One had nobody that lived in the woods anymore. Everybody just lived in the village. There was no reindeer herding or anything like that. And it honestly felt like just a black hole. Like you go to the village, and the kids were never going to be very good in like Russian society, and because they lived in some far remote village and didn't get a great education and stuff. But they were also never going to be like
in the village, traditional people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So they were caught in this in between land, and they would end up just drinking and all the time, and the alcoholism was terrible. As was it also in the village that was connected to the reindeer herding. But what was interesting there is they had an escape. So like the people who wanted to be productive and build things and be proud of something, they'd go into the woods, and then all of a sudden the person who you might meet in the village, and had he only ever been in the village, you just think, what a degenerate drunk, you know, all of a sudden you're in the woods and the guy's happy, he's knowledgeable, he's showing you all this stuff, and he's proud. And not only is he proud, but he's also providing a place for maybe his kids and grandkids to come and even nephews and everybody else to come and live with him in the forest, while in the village everybody just drinks and stuff. So he kind of gives an outlet for all the people, and even the people that don't reindeer herd that live in the village are proud because they're reindeer herders. They're tied to this wider community. And it was really interesting to see how much life and value it kind of gave that village,
Right.
as opposed to the ones that didn't. So something to do with that traditional way was really enriching. But
there's a very famous study on addiction done with mice.
Oh, yeah.
And what they did was they took a mice, or they took many mice, and they put them in cages where they could just get water or cocaine and water.
Oh, yeah.
And the mice would first choose water, then cocaine water would get hooked to it and do it until they died. And so the conclusion was animals will always prefer addiction or whatever fits their dopaminergic circuits. But then one scientist comes in, he's like, let's design this study a little differently, and what we'll do is, instead of putting them in a cage in captivity, let's make rat Disneyland.
Yeah.
Let's make mazes, let's make wheels,
Right.
and then let's also give them water and cocaine. And see what happens. And the rats tend to not choose addiction in that case. A lot of it was about having purpose and having fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely bore witness to that in that society. Made me really appreciate those people, because there's not a lot of them left, but the people that did carry it forward, because although not everybody's going to want to be a reindeer herder and live in the woods all the time,
right?
Just the fact that some of them did kept it open as a possibility for everybody else into the future, because once it's over, it's like kind of over. And it's been really sad lately, because a lot of those guys have honestly gotten sent to the front and have been in the war, and like a lot of these kids that I was with and watched grow up, that were like, when I was there, is like, oh man, I'm glad there's some young people left to carry it forward. Several of them have gotten sent to the front, and
that's interesting.
So it's pretty interesting.
You know why I was asking you about what the thrill is because I also want to understand what makes people tap out. Because you were saying there was these beepers, these garments at the show. Is it like, when you're alone for that long, 5 weeks, you've never heard it, do you start like tripping? Do you start seeing
No,
things?
it's really interesting. I mean, what was interesting? I had the thought when I was on the show alone, I had the thought, like, why has this been so easy for me? Here I am, day 65 or whatever it is, and I just didn't.
Why has this been easy for me? Why
what in my particular life had like prepared me?
God, give me tougher battles. God. Come on, God.
I don't want to pray that. But it was interesting because, in all honesty, that particular trip on that show went pretty well. And I was sitting out there thinking, like, man, why is this thing that's so difficult for some been so easy for me? And it's not because and honestly, it's because I'd been through a lot of the trials that would be presented to me on Alone prior. Like, I remember the isolation of, if you move to a new country and you don't know the language, that has its own isolation. Yep. Even though you're amongst people, you're misunderstood, and it takes a long time to build that language to the level where you don't feel isolated. I remember that being very difficult, and compared to a few months out in the woods, that had seemed a lot harder. But what I noticed very much was that a lot of people tap out because they don't have their house in order, basically. Like, maybe they have a lot of skeletons in their closet, or they were going on the show or going out alone to escape people or escape something. But as the saying goes, wherever you go, there you are. You can't really escape. And what's interesting about being alone is there's no pressure relief valve in your head. So if you have something bouncing around in your head, like maybe you were unfaithful with your wife, or maybe you had like wronged some guy, it's just going to bounce around in your head, and there's no way to like get distracted or relieve it. So it'll just sit there and grind at you and tear people up. So one thing I would recommend people do before they ever did something like that, or in life in general, to be resilient, is to make sure you have no skeletons in your closet, and that your relationships are sound, that you've told the people you love that you love them, and that you're just secure in your relationships, because you would think being alone would be helped by being kind of detached from people. But honestly, it's kind of the opposite. Because I had strong relationships, being alone for 66 days, I knew I would get back, and my family would still love me, and my wife would still be there.
That's crazy.
And I just didn't have to feel insecure about that whole aspect of my life. I just had to focus on
What was in front of you?
surviving. Yeah. And that's another thing, is focusing on the present, because the hardest part for me on that show was the fact that I didn't know when it would end. Hypothetically, it could go for a year, and
That's great, man.
I had all this stress. I had done pretty well. Like, I had a moose, I had all this fish, I had lots of food, but I was like, man, how long am I going to be out here? And I had a lot of stress, because I thought, man, I could be out here 6 or 8 months and still lose. And so then I was like, and then I was stressed about that. And like, I can't stop. And so I kept trying to produce. But
2 of you in that show, and that's it, man.
yeah, it would have been a long show.
Yeah, keeps taking it up, like keep going.
That's what I was afraid of.
Right.
And the more success I had, I was like, surely somebody else is out here
Trying to
having
one-up
success,
me.
and we're going to be out here all year. And so I thought, although the day-to-day I was actually enjoying quite a bit, like it was fine, every day I was stressed about, oh man, sometime in the future I'm going to starve, or sometime I'm going to run out of food, or this or that, or I'm going to miss, a holiday with my kids, or whatever it was that I would worry about. And then the show ended, and none of that ever came to pass. And only in hindsight was I like, man, I had so much stress that I didn't need, because I was not just living in the present, so that would have been good advice to me before I went on the show, is like, hey, make sure you stay in the present. Things that obviously, other things that helped me in that was, because I, like we had talked about earlier, like stretched my comfort zone a lot. I was often outside of my comfort zone and often screwing up and failing, because I was in over my head.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And so I was honestly, I was pretty comfortable in that situation. Like, again, I've been out in the woods a lot and hunted and fished and done all that stuff. But here I am, dropped off in a place all by myself. It was still a novel situation, but because I had been in so many novel situations, it didn't really fluster me. I could I could face it. You'd have something happen. You'd have some problem. You'd actively come up with a solution. It wouldn't work. You'd try something else. It wouldn't work. Try something else. Oh, it worked. And the fact that solution A, solution B didn't work didn't throw me off too much, because I was used to failing, and then iterate, and then eventually you find success.
Well, failing's one thing. I feel like if I was alone in the woods somewhere trying to survive, and if I made a big mistake, like I miscalculated the time it'll take for me to get home, my stock of food got stolen by another, if you made a mistake, that would really fuck with you, dude.
Guys, trust me, I cannot give you the beauty of this conversation in just this one clip. If you like this clip, then you have to go to our main channel and subscribe to it and press the bell icon, because we post some amazing conversations for you on that channel.